This is the HeadRush Podcast with Paul Fraze and Corey Berry.
Welcome to the HeadRush Podcast. I'm Corey Berry, and I rode professional rodeo for 9 years as a bareback rider, not a bronco rider.
Not a bronco, okay.
No, you played the Broncos. Yeah. I ride Broncos.
The very first time I asked you, did you ride bucking Broncos? No?
No. No, you rode Broncos.
Yes.
Defensive end
Denver,
Broncos.
Mile High Stadium.
Mile High Stadium
Yeah,
Broncos.
That's right.
And my co-host, Paul Fraze, played 11 years in the NFL and won Super Bowl.
You had to bring that up?
Who cares if you lost? At least you win.
All right.
All right?
Let's go.
Okay. So at the HeadRush Podcast, we talk about everything related to brain trauma, brain health and wellness. We talk about traumatic brain injury, TBI, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, TES. And I lost my place. And repeated head impacts, RHI. We cover how traumatic brain injuries can and will cause mental health issues such as depression, addiction, lack of executive function, memory loss, even suicide ideation, as well as degenerative neurological issues. These symptoms can be found on the Mayo Clinic and Boston University websites under symptoms of CTE. Our mantra is how to cope and find hope. We focus our energy on finding therapies and sharing hope through education and by raising awareness. Now, Paul, our next guest is very special. I think at her time, it's got to be getting close to 6:30 or 7 o'clock because she's on the other side of the pond.
In Ireland.
Ireland?
Yes.
Are we talking to a leprechaun?
We're talking to, she's a brilliant scientist, so.
I'd say a little bit more than brilliant. She's a phenomenal scientist by our discussions.
We actually, sometimes, we always reach out, and Corey's better than I am, at this than I am, but we always reach out back to people that comment on the show. And Helen was one of those people, and she reached out to us, and she made some comments about what we were doing, that it was very important. And we responded to Helen, and we have since became friends. And I'm going to introduce Helen McCormack. Helen McCormack is founder and CEO of Viotheia Biosciences. And Helen, you're probably going to have to pronounce that correctly. It's a stealth biotechnology development company specializing in neurodegenerative and immune-mediated diseases. Based in Ireland with her all-female team, they are continuing to develop precision therapeutics and precision biomarkers, which is vital work to meet a significant unmet need. Helen has a background of 30 years in global healthcare with a focus on immunology, and infectious diseases. Helen, we are more than just thankful that you are here with us today.
Thank you.
How'd that sound? Now, how do you pronounce your company?
It was absolutely perfect. And I think, what's really nice, I think, about our relationship is Viotheia means to help in Greek. And your company mantra is how to cope and to find hope. So they're very, very similar kind of mantras. And in terms of, what my company, is doing and does, yes, we are focused on brain health as a whole. All my team are either pharmacologists or neuroscientists or neuropsychiatrists or whatever else. And, for such a long time, we've seen the demand in the marketplace specifically for, to use an umbrella term that we use is diseases of demyelination, which basically means the myelin sheath on the nerves in the brain is damaged. And there are a number of diseases that fall under that umbrella. And traumatic brain injury is certainly one of them. And that is why when like I'm not on social media too much. Yeah, I do have a LinkedIn presence, and yeah, I'm on Facebook, but it's more a kind of relationship type and a learning type of, presence. So when I saw your podcast, and I've watched them all, just in terms of, so as individuals that are not only have suffered and are suffering with TBI and, Corey TES, and what you're trying to do with regards to education is very, very much a similar ethos to what we do at Viotheia.
So Helen, I guarantee you looked at us. You looked at us and you said they need help. So we're the people to help them. So interestingly, I've been learning about TBI, CTE for probably 8 years, because I was involved with Boston University when we were trying to find biomarkers for CTE 10 years ago. And then, but I was totally ignorant to the fact, and then I watched a movie called Quiet Explosions it's going on 3 years. And I started to learn about inflammation, but I was totally ignorant to the fact that TBI is a demyelination disease. Or part of the part of that is demyelination.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, it is, and I think that's one of the things, in reality. And I'm speaking to lots of individuals like yourselves, like other medics, like neurologists, pretty much all over the world, at the moment. And there does seem to be I personally believe that if we were to compare cancer and we were to compare TBI, there's about 20 million cases. I have got the exact numbers, and I can quote them, efficiently and effectively with references. But for example, there's about 20 million cases of cancer every year. And cancer is very, very heavily funded and researched. But there's actually 75 million traumatic brain injuries on a global basis. So there's pretty much 3.5 times. So for me, the need is vastly unmet. And I do feel as well, in terms of precision biomarkers, there isn't anything that is completely precise. So there is a current biomarker that is utilized, an awful lot. It's called NFL, neurofilament light protein. It's a protein in the brain. But this biomarker cannot be used on its own. It needs to be used with other diagnostic tools, such as CT, additional blood tests, MR. And does it actually give an overall complete and accurate diagnostic of, yes, this is a TBI, but it can also be used to diagnose Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. And this is where the waters get a little bit muddy, because there are elements of demyelination in Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and other neurodegenerative diseases. But this is what my company are so focused on. It's the accuracy. It's the absolute accuracy to be able to say categorically, you have a TBI, you have TES, and you have CTE, because that's what is needed. And
that path is through biomarkers, but exactly what you explained. There's a number of issues that combine with biomarkers to get that precision that you're talking about. And we're talking about, you guys are not one, when you get a TBI, everybody's different. So one drug is not going to fit all, or one dose, or one molecule, but so you guys are actually going for a precision science or precision therapies. Is that how? Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. So, so for example, if you were still an active player, Paul, in the NFL. You've had another, we'll just be blunt about it and say, bang to the head. You've had another bang to the head. You feel dizzy on the side of the pitch. You're taken off. You go to hospital. They give you take a blood test, give you an MRI, give you a CT scan. But what actually determines when you're fit enough to return to play? What tests do they actually do?
Right.
Well, that little computer test that they make you take that says you can dot your I's and cross your T's.
That's about, and how many fingers do you have up? The one thing that would be different about, if I was still active, I'd be making a lot more money than I did way back when. That's for sure. That's a scary situation because, unfortunately, money will cloud some of these guys' view on TBI and when I have to return, because most of the guys are blue collar players and they know there's a younger, faster kid right behind them ready to step in their shoes. So I don't want to tell the doctor that I just got dinged. I'm going to shake it off and I'm going to stay in.
Yeah, and that I again, I'm not anywhere near a professional NFL player. I played hockey, but thanks be to God, I was never injured. But I think the thing is that there is not enough education about it. We don't talk about it enough in terms of, yes, I have had a bang on the head. Yes, I have had multiple bangs on the head. And also as well as we know, and as the research tells us, and this is not just, these are not just little white papers that have been written. This is like, Boston University, I think it's Deaconess. There's Mayo Clinic. There is the Veterans Association. They have TBI awareness centers. There's Nature magazine. There's Journal of Neurology. There's so many different world leading research scientists and companies that are doing work on this, and the data is there, but it's how we use that data and it's how we educate, because you could be a player for, and again, Paul, educate me, the average term of a professional NFL player, I would guess it's 5 to 10 years.
Three and a half.
Oh, really? 3.5?
Yes.
Okay, so 3.5 years, but then you get to age 30, 35, and your memory starts to go. You start to lose sexual function. You wonder, where the hell has this come from?
You did that at 50?
The doctor, and then you're told, well, it's all in your head. You're a bit stressed. You're not kind of professional anymore. I've seen it with, unfortunately, so many different types of disease, like, controversial with Lyme disease. Like, I've spent 12 years working on Lyme disease. It's so controversial to kind of make these statements and make these claims. But however, somebody has to, because no antibiotics, no amount of depressive drugs or antipsychiatric drugs are going to heal a traumatic brain injury. It's just not going to work. It's actually going to potentially make things worse. Yes, and I think what I just do find very concerning, and I hadn't realised just how many patients were involved, but it is the number of patients with suicide ideation. Like I think we've talked about this in the past as well, like when we've talked about, Chris Benoit from the WWE. There are multiple very famous athletic individuals that have gone through trauma and, kill themselves, kill family members. And again, this is only my opinion and who the hell am I? But I think ultimately this is preventable.
If you've been told it's all in your head, but deep down you know something is wrong, listen closely. Brain fog, depression, anxiety, irritability, even PTSD. These are not just mental issues. They may be signals of neuroinflammation and hormonal disruption, root causes that traditional medicine often ignores. At the Millennium Health Centers, founded by Dr. Mark Gordon, they have helped veterans, athletes, and everyday people restore brain function using a medical process called the Millennium Protocol. Take their free brain health assessment at tbihelpnow.org and discover if inflammation, not weakness, is holding you back. You're not broken, you're unbalanced, and balance can be restored. It's the only neurodegenerative disease I would think that is 100% preventable. One thing that Corey and I we just talked to a mother. These kids, the mothers don't realize, the fathers don't realize, the parents need to be educated, and that's what we try to do, because these repeated head impacts can and will cause mental health issues and degenerative issues in the brain.
And brain damage.
And brain damage. Now, and we were talking to a mother just an hour ago, and we've talked to Bruce and Perry Parkman, who lost their son at 17 to suicide. They were wonderful boys that never would have guessed that they had the suicide ideation. They were good kids, they were hard workers, and all of a sudden it turns out that they were hurting. I mean, they had severe mental health issues, of course. You were talking about that at 35, that light switch turns off. For me, it was at 45, 47, and my brain chemistry really altered. It flatlined in a way that I just can't explain, other than I lost joy. Became apathetic. I was depressed. I had addiction issues for alcohol. You name it. Fortunately, I never had the suicide ideations, but but interestingly, so that I think happened gradually from 1,000 hits every year of 20 years of organized football. Corey rides 9 years professionally in rodeo, and I think, I get hands down, your trauma was more severe. And you had probably just as many swishes.
It's almost like the whiplash effect, isn't it, of the neck snapping back and the head. I'm so sorry, Corey, because it sounds as though I'm being so brutal, but I think we need to be honest, don't we? When the head is moving forward and back like this, the brain is moving an awful lot, and there's
that gelatin's abound
between the brain, and there's only a thin layer called the dura that's between the skull and and it bangs like that. Sometimes yourself, if you get up too quickly and you turn and you get the lag in your vision. Do you know? And Corey, you had years of that kind of momentum, like forward and back, and you very kindly shared your MR scans with me, so I've seen your inflammation, and it's vast.
Well, and I just had my second annual CTE evaluation last month down in San Antonio. I every year I go down and I do an MRI brain scan, neurological exam, blood work, see probably one of the top 5 neurologists in the nation, do a complete workup on me and see where I was last year compared to this year. And if I remember right, and I'm staring at my wife, so I'm sorry I'm not looking at the camera, I had some executive function loss, memory loss, some thinning in the frontal cortex and the memory center. And is what they found compared to last year more.
Yeah.
Now, because of my hope and my awareness and my drive to get better, I could take that one or two directions. One, I could say, Jesus, I ain't going to win this battle. Why should I even fight? Why should I bother? Why not just walk out and shoot myself in the head? And believe me, I thought about it.
No.
I've had the suicide ideation. But you know what? I think because of my drive, because of my wife and my daughter and Paul and you, Helen, and everyone that has circled the HeadRush podcast.
Yeah.
Has given me a reason to go to the Millennium Health Center for their protocol, go to Paradise Behavioral, go to MC Wellness, Karen at stopcte.org have kept me going. You know what? I may slow down, I may get worse, but I'm going to fight until it's the end. But that's also the cowboy way. Buck up, shut up, and get up.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say that it's very important with this podcast and with you, Helen, and everybody else, that we say, what do I say in support group? It took me 25, 30 years of getting my head banged up to get me this way. I'm not going to fix it in a day.
So going back to the science, and you clearly would benefit from a clinical trial of something like, I suppose, like your company is working on. I mean, someday you guys are going to get into that phase 2 and phase 3. I think you've already ventured in. You're very close.
Helen's already bought me a first-class ticket to Ireland.
But it's a double blind, so she can't know. Anyway, but tell us about how, what status are you at as a company in the phase 2 and phase 3?
Tell us a little bit about biotech and where you're at.
Yeah. Okay, so our company is developing assets. One of them is a therapeutic asset, which ultimately is a drug. The others are precision biomarkers, and then there is a companion diagnostic as well. So one of them will be a companion diagnostic for diseases of demyelination. So any other disease of demyelination, like we have a specific focus on 2 diseases. One of them, which is TBI. The other one I won't just declare just yet because we're kind of still in stealth with that. But that we are heavily focused on TBI, and we have done a significant amount of work. We've done our toxicity studies. We've done our phase 1. We're heading into the phase 2B and phase 3. The phase 2B is an FDA trial, and then we've got another phase 2B and another phase 3, which is looking at a different etiology, which will be done in collaboration with a significant governing kind of body, which we're very, very proud of, because there's a lot of significant neurologist inputs from all over the world. So they have what they call a tactical advisory committee. So they have reviewed all of our data under NDA, and they have deemed that our compound merits basically to drive forward. So we're very, very excited about where we are. And then recent lab results, which we've had only this week. I would love to jump up and down and tell everybody about them now. But we've chosen specifically not to do that because, we've been talking quite a lot about, finding hope, because my company, very much led by me. We're all a very, very close team. We've all been affected in some way personally by either one of the diseases and also TBI. But we're all absolutely passionate about true and robust scientific integrity. So we don't do anything without kind of validating what we have. And then when it's validated, then it can be written up and it will be shared. But what we have so far, we are absolutely delighted with, and we've made significant progress in a really, really short space of time. So the way that the program is going, subject to finalising the funding round, which we are there with that, we can commence the manufacturing of the compound very, very early next year. The clinical trial patients have already been selected, and then we can commence one of the studies. And then when we have that study done, we have a phase 3 compound that we can either license, but we're also using something kind of world leading, which I'm very excited about. It's cerebral mini brain organoid models. So what we do is we take blood samples from patients and we actually grow their brains in the lab. And then we introduce compounds and or different techniques to those mini brain organoids, and we can see specifically what doses would suit that patient for the specific type of disease that we have.
Helen, go back to that. Now you're not taking neuron cells from the brain. Are you getting blood samples or stem cells?
Yeah, we're taking blood samples. So a blood draw out someone's arm. Yeah.
And you're growing a mini brain.
We're growing a mini brain in the lab, yeah. And then we introduce different compounds and different chemicals and different placebos. And then we measure the outcome based on those brains. So for example, we have in one of our trials, there's over 3,000 patients. So we'll take 3,000 patients' blood samples the month before the trial commences, and then month 1 after they've been treated, whether it's placebo or they get the compound, and then the same at month 3. And then we can categorically screen which dose is effective to that patient with the etiology of their disease. So we could basically say, oh, that patient needs that dose, and this patient responds better to that dose. And that's precision medicine. Can
you just grow another brain and transplant it into me and Corey?
Transplant the brain you got now. Not your healthy and better brain. It's the one you got now.
Absolutely. And you keep the brain that you've got there now because it's got all your wonderful memories in it as well. But ultimately there is some really exciting work going on. I think it's either Johns Hopkins or Mayo Clinic, and they're doing some work with cerebral mini brain organoids, and they've stated that they are kind of on the precipice of actually, I think that they can actually develop the brain to think and to decision make.
Wow.
Now I don't know exactly how far ahead they are with that, but everything is possible. But the beauty is now that the FDA are actually encouraging mini brain organoid data. They actually advocate it, and they will accept it for data packs for approval, which is really, really impressive. And it's something that me and my team have been, physically working on for, I think, 7 years now. So it's not new to us. We're quite expert at it. But it's definitely an additional element for scientific validation, which is imperative.
It's fascinating. I had a son. We had a son with a muscle disorder called myotubular myopathy, and he was one of 55 known cases in the world. So we raised a bunch of money and we started researching it. We now know there's 5,000 to 8,000 kids out there with it. And so, but we were involved in small molecules, pharmaceuticals, and all of this stuff and we were involved in regenerative medicine with Dr. Anthony Atala over at Wake Forest Institute of Regenerative Medicine, and he was growing a human bladder from autologous stem cell or cells from a half the size of a postage stamp in 8 weeks. And then he was growing muscle, and it was just fascinating how the muscle tissue would grow, but they couldn't get the vascular system to grow fast enough. So they actually made scaffolding of that emitted oxygen, keeping the tissue alive until the vascular system grows in. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Millions live with depression, anxiety, fatigue, or emotional chaos, believing it's permanent. It's not. The Millennium Protocol targets hidden inflammation and hormone disruption caused by trauma, stress, and time. Created by Dr. Mark Gordon, featured multiple times on Joe Rogan and the HeadRush podcast, plus the documentary movie Quiet Explosions, this approach has transformed lives once written off as hopeless. Visit tbihelpnow.org and take the 10-question brain health assessment. Healing is possible. Your story isn't over. Let's begin again with your brain.
So my daughter I think she was 2, so it was 12 years ago. I brought a patch into Ireland. It was called Core Matrix, which was an extracellular matrix, and it was made by it was made from the submucosal intestine of a pig, and it was actually used for cardiac tissue repair or pericardial closure. So if you have maybe a child that has a congenital heart disease and they need to have work done in the heart, they will always close the pericardium because the pericardium is the muscle and it protects the heart. Whereas in an older person, if it's maybe a 70-plus-year-old female or lady that's having a quadruple bypass and a double valve replacement, they won't close the pericardium, but they will use elements of this tissue. And this tissue was exactly what it said on the tin. It was a matrix. You would stitch it into the heart, maybe to patch an area or to strengthen an area where a valve had been replaced or whatever, and it turned into the patient's native tissue. So when you went back in, you couldn't even see it was there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
God, Helen, I'm just blown away with the knowledge you have in science. It just blows me away. Paul just knocked me out of the ballpark. You knocked me out of the stadium.
The universe.
You have to be in Ireland because to even get me to try to fathom this. Can you share what you have done during your career in science?
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course. So I started in the pharmaceutical industry straight out of university with a company called Novo Nordisk. Well, it was actually Ashfield Healthcare. They were a pharmaceutical contract company, and Novo Nordisk was the first contract. So I actually started in women's healthcare and diabetes. So I used to sell an oral hypoglycemic called repaglinide, and then women's HRT. There was Clearvance, Clearfem, and Trisequence. God, we're going back now. I was 21 when I did that. God, I'm 50 next year. Long time ago. And then I moved to another company called Pfizer. So I was with Pfizer for about, I think it was nearly 4 years. I was with Pfizer and kind of was a trainee rep and worked my way up, through the level of rep. And then I went back to Novo Nordisk as a hospital specialist to do like human growth hormones on pediatrics. So children it's all kind of like endocrine disease, children that were not growing perhaps quite as quickly and meeting their milestones as well as perhaps other children. And then I have to be honest, I'd done pharma for about 9 years, and this is going to sound really arrogant, but it's true, and I can prove it. Every target I was hit, I kind of smashed. And it's like, I won Rep of the Year and PPG rankings and stuff like that. And I needed a bit more of a challenge. So I thought, well, what else can I do? And how will I really, really learn about medicine? So I joined Toshiba Medical Systems, which is now Canon Healthcare, and became one of their national account managers for cardiac cath labs, neuro labs, CT, MR, PACS, fluoroscopy, everything that kind of went with it. And I was with them for just short of 5 years, but won Sales Manager of the Year 2 years in a row. They had they were set us targets because, capital equipment like CT and MR is very expensive. So to sell £1 million worth in a year was a lot. You were doing really well. Well, I was making like 4.5, 5.5, at one point 15.5. And then I was headhunted to Ireland to do cardiology with GE Healthcare. And that's what took me to Ireland. So I moved across to Ireland, and then, so I did that for a wee while, and that was non-invasive cardiology, which is kind of stress machines, Holter monitors, ECG monitors, hemodynamic monitoring and cardiac cath labs and things. And of course, you're selling to kind of consultants and cardiac techs. So you need to have the same knowledge or more knowledge than they do to be able to sell your product effectively. So, you could be in a vascular lab with a consultant radiologist and he'll say, right, we're going to do a AAA. What stent do I need? Which graft will I use? What wire will I use to do this? This lesion's really thick. What's the atmospheric pressure in the balloon? And you needed to know, like, you couldn't just go, hang on a minute, I'll just look through my file when the patient's on the table,
Google it.
So, and then I joined Fallon Healthcare as their, like a business unit type manager with a team, and we turned several million every year, and that was cardiology. And we had, I think there were 76,000 product codes and 21 principal agencies. And then after that, I was pregnant with my daughter, who's now 14. And I decided enough is enough. I'm always on an aeroplane. I'm never at home. I'm always traveling. And I opened up my own consultancy firm. So I worked with some of the large companies like GSK, for example, or, other different types of companies, and did like feasibility studies and did venture capital work with a fund in New York called Fundarex. So any companies that would go to Fundarex to seek funding, Fundarex would occasionally come to me and say, can you assess this? And I do a full feasibility study on it and a due diligence on it to say yay or nay for funding. Because there's a wee bit of knowledge in my head. And I know the healthcare markets globally, like the back of my hand. So I started.
You said
I had another. Sorry, Corey.
You said a wee bit of knowledge in your head. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, wee bit of knowledge. What have you done in your 62 years?
Well, yeah. If you say you have a wee bit of knowledge, what do we have?
I rodeoed, I drove truck, and I was an outside salesman. How about you? Football, built houses.
Football was very good to me. So please, Helen, continue. This is fascinating.
Well, so I started my own consultancy company, and then I've worked with a lot of universities, here in Ireland and actually overseas as well. I did some work with MIT and in Maine, and I've done a little bit of work with Mayo Clinic, some feasibility studies and things. And then I thought, so I was invited to actually lecture at some of the universities on kind of like entrepreneurial biotechnology programs. So, for example, I'm an individual, I've developed a medical device. What do I need to do to be able to get it, from concept to commercialization, but also more importantly, how to fund it and how to get it regulatory approved? Because, you can't have shortcuts to these steps. You cannot be selling a medical device that's going to be in somebody's body if it's not regulatory approved, or even, something like a small cannula that's going to go in somebody's hand. It all needs to be medically and regulatory approved. So I was doing a lot of contracts kind of like that, doing biologic license applications to the FDA and other different managerial things and roles like chief of staff for, new hepatic drug market entrants and things like that. And then I did a lot of work with UCD. They are based in Dublin. They are an amazing university. They're known all over the world, and they have some world-leading technologies that have been spun out from UCD. And UCD actually approached me with regards to one of these assets that I currently have within Viotheia, and then we've developed a program of 4 from that. So Viotheia Biosciences was born about 18 months ago, and we have a 2-year program, and at the end of 2 years we'll be ready.
Yeah, that's exciting, because you're saying at the end of 2 years, when we were going through our small molecule pharmaceutical trying to save our son and his peers, it was a long journey. Let me tell us what what you have appreciated or valued more in your career, the work way back when from educating and diabetes and trying to find. I mean, I don't know if they were trying to find a cure or trying to find something to help with symptoms, and then you did some things with medical device. And then now you're doing some things that actually it's almost like you're treating the causation. You're not just masking and covering a symptom. Tell us about that.
So the big question I ask is the
Demyelination. It's hard to say. I studied it. I mean, I've practiced it like 30 times.
Demyelination.
You got it.
From banging my head, with what you're working on in rebuilding the demyelination, will that also repair, or is it just remyelinating? But what's broken is broken.
No, it repairs.
Mm.
It repairs. So.
Sign me up.
Paul's famous words. I'm fixed.
It repairs. Yeah. So the most important thing about remyelination is, so I'm going to answer Paul's question first. What's been more important to me? So when I first started in the pharma industry, and I'm not against big pharma because they do some wonderful things, but I do find personally on a lot of occasions, drugs are developed to treat symptoms, not the cause of disease. So for me, and like I used to, for example, you'd see, like I used to run, high blood pressure clinics with practice nurses, and they would do screening for erectile dysfunction in men because it's known that high blood pressure tablets can cause erectile dysfunction in men, but nobody wants to talk about it. And there was one, I'll never forget, there was one lady, one practice nurse she was in Marisbridge Health Centre in Wigan. Her name was Tracy Kirk, wonderful woman. And she's like, I'm going to start talking about this, to my patients because we need to get a handle on this. It's important. And there was a young gentleman who was 24 years old who had presented to his practice nurse with erectile dysfunction, really, really embarrassed about it, newlywed, all of this kind of jazz. And she talked to him about it and he went, well, yeah, I'm suffering with that, but I didn't want to talk about it. I was really ashamed, blah, blah, blah. I know it's not normal. I'm a young guy, and it turned out this guy actually had cancer on his adrenal gland and his erectile dysfunction was a symptom of that cancer. And she managed to get him the help he needed. She got him the treatment and he was cured. And so for me, it's about education. It's about talking about things, even though conversations are difficult to have. And I know in the past when I've spoken to both, you, Paul, and Corey, that I've said, I'm really sorry for being so blunt, but, when you take a knock to the head, this is what's happening to your brain, because it's true. And that is what's happening to your brain. And we can't kind of pussyfoot around these issues, and we can't sweep them under the carpet, and we can't just say, there's a problem with the mind, there's inflammation in the neck, there's a bit of memory loss, we don't know what it is, we'll call it TBI, we'll call it CTE, we don't really know, but that's what we'll call it, but there isn't any treatment for it. We'll just keep treating your symptoms. So if you've got the shakes, we might give you an L-DOPA, for example, because it could be an element of Parkinsonism. We might give you an antidepressant because you feel low. You've turned to alcohol, or maybe we'll give you some low-dose naltrexone or something like that. So for me, I'm not dissing medicine in any way, shape or form, but I do think that there are newer and far better methods to treat the patients that are the lifeblood of our communities. And that's what's important to me. It's always been about the patient. Like my first boss, Hakim Adibai, he's an absolute gentleman. We're still very, very close. He was my first boss in pharma. And he would always say to me, Helen, you really care about the patients, don't you? And I was 21 and I was like, well, yeah, because they're real people. You know, they are poorly. They have no quality of life. They feel unwell. And then when you start to, like, as I've grown with my career and my knowledge, and you start to see, you know, individuals that have no quality of life, that become wheelchair bound, that lose their, you know, neural function, they lose the ability, you know, they can't remember their wife's name, they can't remember their children's name, did they like this food? Excuse me, like I watched with my own father. My own father had Lewy body dementia with Parkinsonism, and his demise from being, like, I would say a lot of my kind of, you know, brain power came from my father, because he was just an absolute bloody marvel. And when he came to live with me 7 years ago, he didn't know what an avocado was. He didn't know what an apple was. He didn't know if he liked banana. So I was buying the little kind of baby cards that I taught my own babies. You know, A is for apple, B is for banana. You know, like, kind of show and tell, because he'd lost all of that ability. And yeah, the change is happening. We need change, and change is happening. And there are companies like Viotheia, like mine, that will not stop until we deliver.
Stop. CTE.org proudly sponsors the HeadRush Podcast.
Karen and Doug Ziegel, they are founders. Karen founded the Patrick Grisha CTE Awareness Foundation, and they are one of the most comprehensive websites regarding repeated head impacts and chronic traumatic encephalopathy. They work with legislature. They've been doing this for about 10 years.
They're the grandparents of CTE in my book. So don't knock it. StopCTE.org.
She would have made a good cowboy.
She would have made a real good cowboy.
Cowgirl.
Or cowgirl, should I say? Yeah.
Take the bull by the horns.
The problem is she's got too many good brain cells to be a good cowgirl.
Well,
so, Helen, this is fascinating stuff. And, man, I could talk to you all day next week and the month after. You know, we love our conversations. We end each podcast by giving our listeners a word of hope. Will you give a word of hope to our listeners?
I would be honored, and I would love to. For anyone listening, whether you are a family member of somebody that has suffered a TBI or is living with a brain injury or a neurodegenerative diseases, all I would say is just remember that they are doing their best. You are doing your best. And good things are on the horizon. There are people out there that really, really care about neurodegenerative, immune-mediated diseases. And they will stop at nothing to try to encourage healing. And as you've said, and I wrote it down because I really like it, about the podcast, how to cope and find hope. Never lose that hope, because that hope is there. And I'm a mum myself to two beautiful children that are heavily involved in Gaelic sports and things. And, you know, touch wood, and thanks be to God, there has been no sign of any sort of kind of brain injury in their sports at early ages. But I do think that with education, with purpose, with drive, with true scientific integrity, and people like Paul and Corey and others that are speaking their truth and voicing their message, we will get there.
You know, I'm going to let you finish, but I'm going to crack a little joke before this.
Okay.
We're talking to a lady from Ireland.
Yes.
Do you know she very well could be your lucky leprechaun at the end of the rainbow?
Okay. So, meaning I need remyelination?
Exactly. She could be the cure-all to help you and me.
I want to thank you for that word of hope, because it's so important for people to be educated and understand there are bright things on the horizon that to anticipate and to look forward to. Can you go back really quick? Corey's question about, okay, is it just remyelinating, or can it actually bring function or repair to tissue?
We will answer that categorically after the next clinical trial, but the results at this moment do indicate that we can restore function and we can stop disease progression. But until we have categorically proved that in 3,000 patients, it is not a claim that I will stand by just yet.
Amen. We're waiting anxiously.
Well, once you got categorical proof and everything is proven that all this works, before you sell it to someone that's going to charge me $50 million for this, can you kind of just get me to go to Ireland first and go, here, now you can sell it?
Maureen, you are on the list. Absolutely no bother, and Paul as well.
We'll leave Paul here because he's got to do the podcast.
Helen, what a pleasure and enjoy to have you on, and
Thank you.
Exciting things for you and your company and the ladies that stand with you at the company. And wow, I'm looking for. I'm excited that we only have to wait, 18 months, a couple of years maybe. And I'm just expecting to hear wonderful things.
Well, and you're helping her out, and you're reaching some of your contacts in New York and getting them in contact with her. So, there's things happening that you're helping with and the reason why she's on this podcast, because we believe in her. And you heard from her education, you heard from her background, you heard from her knowledge. We didn't know Helen from Aunt Helen.
Wow.
We didn't. Can you tell me where Ireland is?
Yeah, this is how ignorant we Americans are, Helen, okay? I just looked at the map and said, oh, the United Kingdom actually is comprised of 4 different nations, right? Or like England, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and what?
Yeah. So in the UK, we've got Scotland. I don't even know myself.
No, it's the United Kingdom, Scotland. You got Wales. You got.
It's because I've been in Ireland for so long. But yeah, we are. We're separate from the UK. Right. In the Republic of Ireland. But yeah, we're just there's 5 million people in Ireland, so we're about the same size as Manchester in the UK.
Oh wow.
Small.
Well,
5 million people. That's about the size of your home state, ain't it?
No. Well, when I was growing up in New Hampshire, we might have had 1 million. No, they're probably about 5 million now. So.
Yeah, you see, it's just like we're tiny. We are tiny, but we have got some brilliant brains here in Ireland. It's great.
Well, you're proving that to our audience and friends and listeners, and wow, we're excited. We got to have you back on sooner than later, and tell us about the success stories and where we stand. So, Helen, thank you so much.
And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Helen.
It's an absolute. It's a pleasure. I feel very humble to be invited to speak with you today. And like you said, we've become great friends, and that'll be the case from now on. Be wonderful. And I wish you both the very best. Stay well for me, because we're getting there. So stay well.
Amen. We'll hang on.
I'm fighting. Every day of my life, it's a fight, but I'm a fighting.
Good man, Corey.
It's not a good man, it's a good woman.
Yeah.
You know, my wife is the one that keeps me with the fight.
Yep.
When I get depressed, she...
But behind every good man is a great woman.
Is an even better woman.
Even better woman.
Even better woman. That's right.
And if you put it to cowboy terms...
What do they say?
She's the hero.
Yeah.
We're all show, she's all go.
That's right. Good. Thank you again.
All righty. Thank you, Helen. You have a good one.
Thank you so much.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye-bye.
Now. Bye.
Holy cow.
That was pretty cool.
Pretty?
I'm excited for people to hear this because it's going to give them hope, more hope than they've ever had. Just like when I saw the movie Quiet Explosions, I saw the movie Concussion 8 years ago, and I was demoralized. I was like, there's no hope. You know, Mike Webster lived a horrible existence. And what are they doing? What can they do now? And then I see a movie, Quiet Explosions, that gives you hope. Okay, get the inflammation out of the brain, lower it, see if you can get the hormones adjusted and everything in the brain chemistry balanced out and give yourself a neuropermissive environment to heal. Okay, and then you hear something like this. And Helen said that there are bright things coming in the near future. So the future can't come quick enough for you and I.
No. And I just want to end this episode by saying this is why we do the HeadRush Podcast, is to bring hope and awareness to people that suffer like Paul and I, and people that are worse than us and better than us.
Right.
And when you listen to a doctor from across the pond talking about how they develop many brains from our blood cells, and then they fill it with this stuff to remyelinate and repair the brain, and that they're going into the second phase. Mm-hmm. Is it second or third?
They're going into phase 2, and they can follow it up with phase 3 pretty quickly. So
I mean, if that ain't hope,
right?
You know, I mean, between her, between Margord, between Mizell DeMayo, there's hope. Well, vestibular therapy. There's so many modalities out there that, you know, I'm going to put this out there. Robert Kennedy, somehow, if you get wind of this, we would love to bring you on our podcast to talk to you about TBI, brain health, Maha movement, eating better, sleeping better, being better. How about you?
I don't doubt that just might happen, because you tell me the worst it can be is a no, right?
That's it. Nope. So thank you very much. Y'all have a great day. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Go to our social medias. Comment on it, on what you would like to see us do, what you would like us, maybe what you want to see next. Well, if there's someone you want us to talk to.
This technology came to us by Helen reaching out, and she's in Ireland. How did she see us, the HeadRush Podcast here in Dallas, Texas, right?
Don't you know, man, who we are? We are the HeadRush Podcast.
So reach out to us, share with us any information that you have. You know, there's we can be made aware of certain things that are going on that you know we just don't know about. So please reach out to us, comment, like, subscribe, share, and bring awareness to repeated head impacts and the dangers of. and we will
Talk to you
talk
next in 2 weeks.
in a couple of weeks. Yes. So stay alert and stay alive.
Have a good evening.
This podcast is for general information only and does not constitute the practice of medicine. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard and delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.